Yes, ladies and gentlemen, hello, welcome to another video here on CM42 TV, and more importantly, welcome to another podcast here, not only on CM42 TV, but in association with the one and only The Good Bit Podcast. Yes, hello everybody, welcome. Here we are. My name is Chris Moffat. I am your host, not only the host of CM42 TV here on YouTube, but I am the host of the Good Bit Podcast, very proudly. And here we are. We're starting another new series, not only on the YouTube channel, but with the podcast. Yes, for a long time. Finally, my God, finally, have we been thinking about this, right? And finally, we have done it. We pulled the trigger, and finally we are here live, recording, not live, but will be live sometimes, on this Monday morning, 11:04am. I was just watching the start of the Best of the Super Juniors. There's our wrestling reference for you already. And I thought, you know what, this is the right time. This is the time to start this new excursion, this new adventure that we're all going to be on together here on the Good Bit Podcast and CM42 TV. So let me explain what this whole thing is going to be, what the differences are between the podcast, between the YouTube channel, and between this, right? So here we go. This is it. This is the Good Bit Wrestling Podcast. This is what we've been waiting for, or at least what I've been waiting for nearly 2 years, I think. Basically, I feel like I have always done a really good job at, keeping a good, in terms of the YouTube channel, keeping a good sort of mix between movie-related stuff, which is what the channel has almost become a full-time resident of, being sort of movie-related things, whether it be Blu-ray updates, movie reviews, reaction videos to trailers, that sort of thing. That's kind of what the channel has become, but that wasn't always the case. If you've been following the channel for a long time, you've been following me for a long time, first of all, I greatly appreciate you, your brother or sister, whatever. You're my family, my God. Where was I this is going to happen a lot, just warning you. I'm going to kind of go off in tangents. I'm going to start being silly, daft, and I'm just going to lose my train of thought, which happens too often. Right, so yeah, I've always felt as if I've had a good mix between having movie and wrestling related stuff on the channel. But back in the day, it was all wrestling. It was a wrestling channel. I've always been known as, the wrestling guy, whether it be in school or whether it be here at home or wherever in my social circle on the podcast. I've always been kind of the wrestling guy, and that's been shown on my YouTube channel since I started one back in November of, ready for this, 2007. Yes, I was an OG YouTuber back on November 19th, I want to believe. It's either 19th, 23rd or 27th. Can't remember. I'm assuming there's birthdays on those days and I'm getting them mixed up with something. But on that day, November, 2007, I posted my first YouTube channel, my first YouTube video, my first YouTube content ever on that day. And since then, I've been going strong. I've taken breaks here and there, which I think is normal. I think everybody needs a break, especially just from if you do something so often. But since from then to maybe about 2012, this is a wee sort of background on the channel. Since about 2012, it was all wrestling every day. Review, DVD update, Blu-ray update, prediction video, review, reaction, anything wrestling, which was great. I had a great time, met some great friends, some of who I still talk to this day. It was great. And then in 2012, I started buying new Blu-rays that weren't wrestling stuff. I just started buying movies and that sort of thing. I started sort of watching new YouTubers who talked about movies a lot. Ones that come to mind immediately would be Cool Duda. He was one I kind of got into. That sounds weird in a Glaswegian accent. A Cool Duda. He was one that I kind of gravitated to, and other people like that. And like the bigger names in YouTube, as if that's a thing. But it was back in the day. It was a big deal. So then I started watching his videos, and just some of my friends were doing movie related things, so I decided to kind of upload a wee video talking about movies. And although back in the day I wasn't even that fussed about certain movies and stuff, but I just started buying them on Blu-ray and stuff, whereas now movies are such a big part of my life, and films. What happened to the camera there? Oh my God, I'm sitting in front of a window. So anyway, movies are such a big part of my life now, whether it's almost like the line of work I'm going into is making movies and being in movies. And I say movies, but at the moment, short films or student films, independent films, that sort of thing. But the grand scheme of things, it's movies, it's cinema. It's first thing in the morning. My fucking voice is going already. First thing in the morning, 11:10. Jesus, oh my God, dear God. I've got this nice new bottle here. See what I mean? This is going to happen. It says H2O on the go. Bought it recently. And it helps me drink my water every day. It gives you sort of like a time code of when you should be drinking. Let's just drink it anyway. Listen, ready? Very good, very tasty, very refreshing. Very refreshing. First thing in the morning, what you should always do first thing in the morning, with your breakfast, whether it's tea or whatever, have a drink of water, because it does wonders for you. People need to understand the wonders that water does for you. Switching gears, but that's okay. All you have to do is drink a little bit of water every day. I would drink 2 of these a day. I tried to drink 2 of these. I can't remember the exact measurements of that, but I know it's 2 of these today, or 2 of these a day that I am recommended to have. And it just helps with your mental health, it helps with your digestion, it helps with your sleep, it helps with your thinking, it helps with your energy, your attitude, your mood. Water helps with everything. If you want to lose weight, go on a water diet. Brilliant. There you go. Drink some water. And I didn't know that until recently. I didn't know. I always, just drank water at my leisure. I had it in school or whatever. But now that I'm an adult, now that I'm a man, I'm one of the, I'm part of the more rugged generation now. I'm an old man now. I'm in my early 20s. I just started thinking about health more and exercising more, and water is a big component of that. Anyway, where the hell did that come from? What was I talking about? Yes, so I was talking about my my movies that I watched, and I kind of got more into it. Now movies are more part of my life now, which is why the channel now, CM42 TV, has become literally all a movie channel, and there's nothing wrong with that, because as I said, they're a big part of my life now. It's kind of all I think about, whether it be reaction videos or reviews or whatever. The 100 Movies Bucket List series, which is going really well. I'm on episode 9 of 100, but anyway. So then when I started the podcast, I started the good bit back in 2016. I actually started a podcast before then, right at this fucking table, at this office space here in my house. It's just taking me back, actually. This is kind of like what I did in the very first thing. That was May the 1st, which is nearly to the day, 12 days after. But May the 1st, 2015, I did my first ever podcast, and it was all about me, and it was all about my life, and we talked about wrestling on that. We didn't do the whole transition yet. And then in 2016, March 31st, 2016, see, that's the wrestling fan in me. Knowing dates, knowing when things happened. Wrestling fans can do that because they can tell you dates of their favourite matches, and dates of their favourite championship wins, and dates of their favourite pay-per-views. Like April 1st, 2001, WrestleMania 17 was my favourite one, in front of 67,925 fans at the Houston Astrodome. You just know these things because it's just as a wrestling fan, you're trained to kind of pick up on these things. So March the 31st, 2016, it wasn't even part of the YouTube channel at that point. It was just, doing the podcast with my brother Aaron, my friend, one of my best friends in the world, Aaron, who is currently in London, because in 2016, later that year, 2016, he moved to London. It's just left me on my own to do the podcast, but it was almost a blessing in disguise because I've had such a good time being the host of the Good Bit and travelling, seeing all my friends who live in different areas and talking about movies and having that common bond, So that's been great, and now because the podcast is all movies and the YouTube channel is all movies, there's less and less time for wrestling, and it's almost that there's no wrestling on the channel whatsoever now, which is odd to me because I'm just so used to knowing to talk about wrestling. So every so often I'll post a wee sort of wrestling themed video and stuff on YouTube. I'll do like the Mellow Thoughts series and stuff, but I've not done one in a while, and I was losing the interest. I was thinking, I'm going to need to talk about this pay-per-view now. And that's the thing, that is when it's time to kind of move on, try to reinvent, try to do something new, is when you say to yourself, this is now becoming a chore. When you're doing a podcast or a YouTube channel, and that's what people need to understand about running a successful YouTube channel. You cannot... you have to enjoy it yourself, but it has to show that you're enjoying it. Because if you're not enjoying it, it's not going to show that you're enjoying it, and no one's going to enjoy watching it. I should do that, shouldn't I? I should do like a sort of tips on how to create a successful YouTube channel. As if I feckin' know. Because I've had the biggest lots of ups and downs on my YouTube channel, starting and stopping for all these years. But, I've been around for a while, I suppose. I guess I'd have some tips I could give people starting up, I suppose. But that's the key. If you're not enjoying yourself, if it's becoming a chore for you, there's no point in doing it because it'll just look bad. It looks kind of... Especially the fact that you put all this time and effort into it. If it looks false, and it is false, it's not going to be good for yourself or anybody watching. So if that's the case, I always try to move on. Like if I'm doing a series or something, and or even a podcast and it's getting stale for me, I'm getting bored of it, I'm getting tired doing it. If it's becoming a chore, I'll try to move on, I'll try and stop, I'll try and do something different. So when I was thinking about, I was watching pay-per-views, and nowadays I just can't wait to see these pay-per-views. It's so good. Like, obviously back when I was younger it was the same, but there was a time where I guess I was so busy when I was in college and I was working and that sort of thing. A lot of time I was just kind of like, the pay-per-views are on, I'll just watch them. But nowadays, the last year or so anyway, I'm so excited for every pay-per-view to come on, and because it's like you're adding new knowledge to your brain. It's like when you've got a favourite music artist, not musical, we're not talking about hairspray here. Your favourite band, for example, right? They say we're bringing out a new album, and the new album's going to come out one song every month. You're looking forward to that song every month because it's new information and it's a new part of your favourite thing going into your head and it's going into your memory and you're digesting it. I kind of look at pay-per-views like that. And now with AEW coming into it back later this month, and then if their weekly show starts in October or this fall or whatever they keep talking about, that's even more to enjoy. And I love all wrestling. I love Impact. I love ICW. I love NXT, Ring of Honor whenever I watch it. I'll talk about that as well at one point, my sort of wrestling watch pattern, my schedule. Because I think it's very interesting, like how to digest whatever 20 hours a week or something or whatever it is for wrestling. So you got Raw 3 hours, SmackDown 2 hours, and you get NXT and NXT UK, which is another 2 hours, right? So it's at 8. That's 3, 5, 7. Impact is 2, 9. ROH is 1, 10. Then you got to watch your Table for Threes. You got to watch your 205 Live. You got to watch your ride-alongs, your photo shoots. You got all the network exclusives. You're watching in double figures now hours of wrestling a week, and it's a long time. It's a really long time. And then if considering the fact a lot of people like watching, especially myself, like watching older stuff on the network and stuff, and I'm going to do a whole episode about the love I have for the WWE network with all the sort of retro stuff, and it's just ridiculous. If someone had told me back in the day, that we're going to have all this wrestling content, it's just at your fingertips. It was such a novelty collecting wrestling DVDs and collecting pay-per-views. It's like, I can't wait for the pay-per-view to be released on DVD so we can add it to the collection. And think about how many times I would watch those DVDs, especially when I was really young and I had them on VHS and videos, and you would just watch them on repeat, and then as you got older you bought the pay-per-views, and the more you liked them, you'd watch certain matches, you'd skip the ones you didn't like, you'd go back and watch the ones you did. And now it's just become like, you don't even need the DVDs for one thing. I've got all my DVDs upstairs, still on my shelves and stuff, and I've hardly touched them in a year, even more than that. Maybe I should do a video on that. Maybe I should just go through every single one of my DVDs, because it would bring back a lot of memories for me. Because with the advent of the network and stuff, totally all that DVD stuff and the Blu-ray collection and stuff, wrestling stuff right over my head. And every so often you'll get, I'll get a wrestling Blu-ray and stuff just to kind of keep up, and just if there's a documentary coming out that's not going to be on the network, which is rare, but I'll maybe buy it. Or if I'm going to an autograph thing, like a couple of years ago I went to meet Eric Bischoff. Jesus, that was nearly 3 years ago now. I went to meet Eric Bischoff, and I bought his Blu-ray just to get it signed and stuff, and it's one of my favourite things I've got in my collection, because it's like autographed to me and stuff, which is really cool. So yeah, the WWE Network is right at your fingertips now, and it's like you don't even need your DVDs, you don't need the stuff you've bought. You can just go and watch a fucking WCW pay-per-view from 1993 for no reason. You can watch No Way Out 2005 barbed wire steel cage match between Big Show and JBL on a Tuesday afternoon. It doesn't matter if you have the DVD or not. So it's ridiculous, and I'll do a full episode of the Good Bit Wrestling podcast talking about what I watch on the network, my routines, and what I kind of go to. Which everybody's got that kind of the go-to, the classic content if they want to watch old wrestling. Like, what's the one thing you go to? Have you got a certain pay-per-view, a certain genre, a certain show? I think everybody's interested like that because everyone is different. So yeah, so what were we talking about before we went off on that tangent? The differences between the podcast and the YouTube channel, which I think was the point of this whole video. This is like the introduction episode, by the way. Yeah, so we were doing wrestling stuff on the YouTube channel, and now it's pretty much all movie stuff, and I was doing the mellow thoughts, and they kind of got stale. So I wanted to do some form of wrestling content maybe on the podcast. And in 2017, we did an episode of The Good Bit, and it was called Wrestling is Wonderful, which is a sort of pun to Matt Hardy. Wonderful, yes! But it was also because wrestling is wonderful, and we all love wrestling. And so we did a great episode, and it's one of my favourite podcasts that we've done, because it's so passionate, and it's so, it was me, Fraser, Jack and Mason. We were all sitting around this table again, and we just talked about everything in the world of wrestling that we love. And it was one of those ones where there was no structure. We were kind of throwing out random facts. And what's your favourite match? How did you get into wrestling? Why do you love wrestling? That sort of thing. It was so passionate. It was so much fun. It was all full of love. And it's one of sort of our best received episodes, one of our most listened to episodes. So I was thinking, right, we're onto something here. So at that time, I was thinking we're going to do, every month, we're going to do one movie episode and one wrestling episode. Movie episode, wrestling episode, in that order. And that didn't happen at all. Then we watched an old pay-per-view, right? We watched WCW Sold Out 2000. There's a feckin' obscure pay-per-view for you, and I recommend everybody go and watch that, because it's a great laugh. It's one because I had it on VHS when I was younger, and so did Jack, who was on the show with me. And it was just like sort of come to Jesus meeting where we said, right, that's the one we're going to do, because we both had it when we were younger, and let's, show Mason and Fraser this great show. So we did that, and it was like watching an old show that we hadn't seen in ages. It was so much fun. And we did a whole podcast about it. We took notes about the matches and stuff, and it was ridiculous because it's such a bad show, but it reminded me of my childhood a lot, because that's what I thought WCW was, like Chris Benoit and Sid Vicious and Terry Funk and Kevin Nash. And although in 2000, essentially in 1999, that is what WCW was, but just before then, like, it's just like there's so much better stuff from WCW that you could have watched. But anyway, that's what we saw when we were younger, and that's what we kind of wanted to talk about. So we did a full episode of The Good Bit, all about Sold Out 2000. So when I look back at the episodes now, I'm scrolling through like the Spotify feed of all the podcasts, and that one comes up. It's so fucking random, just out of nowhere. Just Sold Out 2000. Why, I don't know. Yeah, so then we did that one. That went really well, but again, it was just totally random. It's not really what I wanted. I kind of wanted to talk about certain wrestling topics, not certain shows. But at the time, I wanted to do the shows. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not really what I was after. So I didn't really know what I wanted, if I was honest. But I was just trying a new thing. Anyway, then I won a competition to get free tickets to go to an ICW show at the Hydro in Glasgow. So Mason and Jack came with me, and we talked about ICW on the podcast, and that was a good laugh. And then what did we do after that? And then we did one about WrestleMania 34, and that was the last time. So that was over a year ago now. WrestleMania 34 was in April 2018. We did an episode all about WrestleMania, and there's not been one since. And that's kind of when the decline of all the wrestling content from me in general started to go, whether it be on YouTube or even the podcast and stuff. And that's just not on, because for me, as I said earlier, I'm the wrestling guy. I want as much wrestling content as physically possible, because it's just I'm wrestling daft. I'm wrestling in the heat. So I thought, okay, I'll just have my own series on The Good Bit, and we'll do it here and on CM42 TV exclusively, and that's what we're doing here. So we're just going to have it on YouTube now. I'm sure that'll change in a month's time, because my opinion will change, but hopefully this goes well. It could just be me. I could have a guest. What I want to do is just whenever I fancy. It doesn't need to be every week. It doesn't need to be every month. Just whenever I want. Either talk about a certain show, predictions, review, that sort of thing. But also I just kind of want to talk about a general topic, like my favourite WrestleMania, my favourite wrestling pay-per-views, what got me into wrestling, why do I still watch, what's my wrestling routine, recommendations for the WWE Network, other things like that, just things that are going on in the world of wrestling, talking about AEW, talking about Impact, talking about all these things, NXT UK, all that stuff I'd like to kind of talk about here on CM42 TV on the Good Bit Wrestling Podcast, and that's what we're here for. So that's what we're going to do. There you go. That's the story of the progression of wrestling content here on CM42 TV and the Good Bit Podcast. And we're now here to do the Good Bit Wrestling Podcast here on CM42 TV, and it's very exciting. It's another, it's given me that outlet to talk about wrestling without having it to be so specific. You know what I mean? It's just going to be, I'll come on here, I'll talk about whatever I want to talk about, and it doesn't need to be a 10-minute thoughts video just on a pay-per-view. I'm sure we'll do episodes on pay-per-views, but then they can be a bit more chilled, and I don't need to worry about time and that sort of thing. So, also, by the way, I'm filming this, right, as you can tell. I'm not going to film it every time. I'll just have a sort of title card up or whatever, just because I thought I'd film it because it's the first one, it's the introduction thing, but just because then it's not really a podcast, is it? It's just a fucking video. So, I'll try and keep it a podcast. Maybe sometimes I'll release the audio on the feed if I've not had a good bit episode in a while or whatever, but just it's going to be a staple of CM42 TV. The wrestling content will come through here on the Good Bit Wrestling podcast. So yeah, give me some suggestions if anybody has any ideas for random episodes you want me to do. I was doing a series called Random Wrestler Recollection, which I was really enjoying, but I just never got around to doing any more of them. So I was thinking maybe just making that a segment here on the show, where I pick out a random wrestler's name and talk about one, with no notes and no pre-knowledge of who I'm going to talk about, just anything I've got in my head of that particular wrestler, and just talk about that, performer from the top of my head, So that is an idea I had. I'd maybe do that on the show, and I could maybe do sort of like WWE Network pick of the week or something, and give sort of a recommendation of what I've been watching, maybe like a hidden gem that I've found that I could maybe recommend you go check out. Stuff like that would be quite cool. Answering some questions about my wrestling fandom, who I like, who I don't like, what I like, how I look at wrestling is one, because I feel like I look at wrestling in a very different way to other people, and I think it's because I'm a performer. I think it's because I'm in the entertainment industry myself. I use that term loosely, but as a young performer trying to sort of break into the entertainment industry, I guess I'm looking at it differently. And I just, when I talk about wrestling with people, there's a different way. I have a different mindset. And I think it's also because I've gone through the stages of being a wrestling fan. I've already been through all. I've been a child who loves everything. I've been the smarky teenager that thinks he knows everything but just hates everything for no reason. I've been the Mark guy who I just want to collect everything because everything's brilliant. And now I look at it in a total different way. I look at it like, almost when I'm watching Raw, I feel like I'm part of the fucking show, because I'm like, oh, that was a terrible decision. Alright, that was good, keep going. And I'm kind of like giving people advice, sitting on my fucking couch. So I think that's a full episode that I can talk about how I look at wrestling, why I look at that in a different way, and why I look at it in certain ways. And I feel like it should be a way that everybody looks at wrestling, because it makes it so much better and it makes it so much more fun to watch. Like Raw last week was critically slammed, I spat everywhere, was slammed by the internet and wrestling fans and stuff. Whereas Vince McMahon came out and announced this new wild card rule, and just, he was saying, this is going to be a great episode of Raw that you'll never forget. And they announced these title matches, and these people from SmackDown were coming over, and it felt like a big deal. Like Roman Reigns was there, and Daniel Bryan returned, and it was a big deal. And then the episode as a whole was just slammed, even though we had some really good stuff in there, just because there was certain bad decisions, silly decisions, confusing decisions, but that affects the whole show apparently. So things like that, like, that's just kind of what I talk about. I'm thinking, how does this affect? How can you say a show that had Ricochet, and I think Bobby Roode had a good match, and you had this great WWE title match with Daniel Bryan and Kofi Kingston, and you had Roman Reigns on there against Drew McIntyre, and you had all this good stuff, but because certain decisions were made and there was some bad points off the show, the whole show feckin' suffers. And it does. I'm not saying it doesn't suffer in it. It doesn't make the show less good and less memorable, but it's just there's certain ways that I feel like we can approach things. We can approach them differently in a nicer manner, a more positive way, I think. And I just feel like I'd want to talk about just the way I look at it, and I feel like I can pass on the way I look at wrestling to other people, to the point where they can maybe try and enjoy it a bit more. I don't know. I enjoy wrestling, for every way I can, and I enjoy every part of wrestling that I watch for different reasons. I don't look at NXT the same way I watch Raw. You can't do that. You have to look at Raw in a different way. So I'll explain that, I guess, here on the podcast and stuff. But yeah, here we go. That's all I wanted to do today. Just wanted to start, give some backstory, do a wee introduction. This is what we're going to do wrestling-wise on the channel and on the podcast. It is the Good Bit Wrestling Podcast, and I'm very excited to get started, to get involved. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll have some guests sometimes. I'll do some predictions. I'll do some reviews. I'll do some reactions. I'll do whatever. But please continue to watch here on CM42 TV. I'm doing a lot of new stuff. I'm just trying out some things and stuff, and we're trying to grow. We're doing really well. We just cracked another 100 subscribers, which is amazing. So happy. We're now like at 1,202 or something. So unbelievable, brilliant. So thank you very much for watching, everybody, for continuing to support, for commenting, subscribing, liking, sharing. If you can do any of that, I would greatly appreciate it. It does wonders, just as much wonders as drinking water. Right, until next time, folks, thank you very much for listening and watching. I'll be back here for obviously more videos and for more installments of the Good Bit Wrestling Podcast. Thank you very much. Take care of yourselves. Go watch some wrestling. Don't hate everything. And check back here with the Good Bit Wrestling Podcast.